Welcome, travelers. Today we're exploring the top 5 failures of the Joe Biden presidency, through the eyes of those who love to travel. How have White House decisions affected our plans, wallets, and freedom to go? Let's find out. This video is ad-friendly with music from the YouTube Studio Library. We're not here for politics, just the real impact on your travel life. If you value honest, traveler-focused content, please hit subscribe. Your support keeps this community going. Let's dive in. First up, the chaos of ever-changing travel restrictions and confusing guidelines. Remember the hope for clear, coordinated pandemic policies? Instead, we got a mess of shifting rules. One day, a travel ban, the next, new testing requirements, often impossible to meet. Booking a flight became a gamble. Plans were upended by sudden CDC or State Department changes. The lack of consistent communication between the US and other countries was staggering. Europe had one set of rules, Asia another, and the US contradicted itself week to week. This wasn't just about vacations. Students, business travelers, and families were all caught in the crossfire. The uncertainty paralyzed the travel industry and individual travelers alike. Financially, it was brutal. Non-refundable flights, useless travel insurance, and a bureaucratic maze left travelers stranded and out of pocket. The administration's approach felt reactive, not proactive, slapping on bans instead of building a sustainable, science-based system. The result? A patchwork of rules that isolated the US and eroded trust. Families were separated for months, sometimes years, by red tape and unclear policies. The promise was order and predictability, but travelers got the opposite. The moving target of guidelines left everyone anxious and frustrated. A more thoughtful, consistent strategy was desperately needed. Instead, we got confusion, lost money, and missed moments that can't be replaced. For millions, this was a failure that made travel feel impossible. The lesson: leadership in crisis means clear, coordinated action, not chaos. Travelers deserve better. The world is more connected than ever, but these policies made it feel further apart. We need travel rules that balance safety with the human need to connect. Instead, we got a masterclass in how not to manage a global travel crisis. The impact was personal, financial, and deeply frustrating. For travelers, this was a defining failure, and it's one we won't soon forget. Next, the Great Passport Pileup, a bureaucratic nightmare for millions. As travel reopened, demand for passports surged. The State Department was caught flat-footed. Processing times exploded from 6 weeks to over 18. Even expedited service took months. People missed honeymoons, study abroad, and family reunions, all because their passports were stuck in limbo. Phone lines were jammed, help was non-existent, and frustration mounted. The administration knew demand would spike, but failed to ramp up staffing or modernize systems. Instead of preparing, they waited for disaster. Desperate travelers paid third-party couriers, flew across the country for appointments, or begged their representatives for help. The emotional toll was huge. Months of anxiety, dashed hopes, and wasted money. A passport is a basic government service. Failing to deliver it is a fundamental breakdown. This wasn't an unforeseeable crisis. It was a failure of planning and resource allocation. The government's inability to handle a predictable surge shook public confidence. The backlog became a barrier, keeping Americans from opportunities and loved ones. It was a wall of inefficiency, entirely preventable. For travelers, it was a stark reminder: sometimes your own government is the biggest obstacle. The lesson? Proactive planning matters. When government fails at the basics, everyone pays the price. The passport pileup left a lasting scar on trust. It's a failure that should never have happened. For millions, it turned the dream of travel into a nightmare. We expect better, and we deserve it. The world was reopening, but the door stayed closed for too many. This was a missed opportunity to restore faith in public service, and it's a failure travelers won't soon forget. Let's talk about the soaring cost of travel, another blow to every traveler's wallet. Inflation has made flights, hotels, and rental cars more expensive than ever. Yes, global factors matter, but domestic policy played a big role. Massive spending and supply chain issues pumped up prices across the board. Airfare skyrocketed as jet fuel costs rose, partly due to restrictions on domestic energy production. Airlines passed those costs straight to us. That $300 flight? Now it's $500. Family vacations are out of reach for many. Rental cars became a luxury, with prices tripling in some cities. Hotel rates and restaurant prices soared, making even basic trips unaffordable. The administration's response often felt out of touch with real-world pain. Wage growth means little if travel costs outpace your paycheck. The dream of affordable travel is slipping away for middle and working-class families. Travel is becoming a privilege for the wealthy, widening the gap between haves and have-nots. Leadership means cushioning the blow, not making it worse. The failure to control inflation and energy prices hit travelers hard. Every trip now comes with sticker shock. The cost of travel has fundamentally changed, and not for the better. For many, the world feels bigger and more expensive than ever. The policies of the last few years have made travel a luxury, not a right. This is a failure that affects everyone who dreams of exploring. The impact is personal, financial, and deeply felt. We need policies that make travel accessible again. Until then, every journey comes with a higher price tag, and that's a cost travelers shouldn't have to bear. Now let's talk about the chaos in the skies, the airline industry's meltdown. The government gave airlines billions to keep staff during the pandemic, but oversight was weak. Airlines pushed experienced workers into early retirement, leaving them understaffed when travel rebounded. The result? Mass cancellations, endless delays, and stranded passengers. The Department of Transportation failed to hold airlines accountable for overpromising and under-delivering. Airlines sold tickets for flights they couldn't staff, and the government let it happen. Passengers slept on airport floors, lost luggage, and missed life events. The administration's response was mostly talk, not action. Proactive regulation was needed, but came too late. Staff were overworked, customer service collapsed, and frustration boiled over. The government's job is to ensure safety and reliability, but it failed. Airlines prioritized profits over people, and travelers paid the price. The Southwest meltdown during Christmas 2022 was a prime example. Outdated tech, no regulatory push to modernize. The administration was asleep at the switch and families suffered. Taxpayer money bailed out airlines but didn't guarantee a resilient system. Profits were privatized, misery was socialized. For travelers, this was a betrayal of trust. The promise was competence, the reality was chaos. The airline industry's tailspin was preventable. Stronger oversight and accountability could have made a difference. Instead, travelers were left stranded, literally and figuratively. The lesson: bailouts need strings, and travelers need protection. This failure left millions questioning if flying is worth the risk, and it's a stain on the administration's record. Finally, let's talk about borders, the front door to every journey. The Biden administration's border policies have been a source of confusion and frustration for travelers. Land borders with Canada and Mexico were closed, reopened, and changed with little warning. You couldn't drive across, but you could fly, policies that made no sense. Border communities and families suffered, businesses lost revenue, and travelers were left guessing. Communication was poor, coordination with neighbors lacking. The promise of restored alliances fell flat at our own borders. Beyond neighbors, shifting visa and entry rules made the U.S. seem unpredictable to international visitors. Tourists and business travelers need stability, not sudden changes. Unpredictable policies deter visitors and complicate travel for Americans abroad. Other countries responded with their own restrictions, making travel even harder. Customs officers were stretched thin, leading to long waits and more frustration. The focus on crisis management overshadowed the need for efficient legal travel. The core failure: no long-term vision, just reactive policy swings. For travelers, this meant risk and uncertainty at every step. Planning a trip became a gamble. Will the rules change before you return? The message at the border was confusing and inconsistent. Travel should be about connection, not confusion. The lack of a stable framework undermined confidence and hurt tourism. Borders are a nation's welcome mat, and ours sent mixed signals. For travelers, this was an unnecessary and avoidable burden. We need clarity, not chaos, at the front door. So there you have it. 5 failures that reshaped travel for millions. Confusing rules, passport nightmares, soaring costs, airline chaos, and border uncertainty. These aren't just headlines, they're the lived experiences of travelers everywhere. If this resonated with you, please subscribe and join our community. Your support keeps this channel independent and focused on what matters to travelers. Thank you for watching, stay informed, travel safe, and see you on the next journey. Until then, keep exploring.